Hi everyone. You remember the incident in Duma in April of 2018 that I have made videos on many times showing how it's been debunked? But it's just been debunked some more. Look into it. Stick around. Hi everyone. You remember when Duma, an incident in Duma in 2018, I'm just making sure that I am live, and yes I am, I've just had notification of it. So you remember this guy, right? Around about that time. This guy's name is former First Sea Lord Admiral West. They don't put that as an option on application forms, do they? You know, Miss, Mrs, Mr, Doctor, former First Sea Lord. Anyway, this is him on BBC's Radio 4 on the 16th of April in 2018, just 2 days after the trilateral strike on Syria by the United Kingdom, France and the United States, after Syria's President Bashar al-Assad allegedly launched a chemical weapons attack on his own people in Duma just a few days earlier. Take a listen to what he said at the time.
I could set up a situation where I would wait until a Syrian helicopter was overhead dropping a barrel bomb and then set off some chlorine agent. I know I could do that. And that's what I would do if I was one of the Islamic terrorists, because they know they're losing.
But you don't have any evidence for that, do you?
We know that they've used chlorine in the past. We know they've done that in the past. And what is our evidence? A lot of the evidence we've been shown are, for example, information from the White Helmets, who do some good work rescuing people, but they didn't do anything to try and get women and children out of areas where they were being used as human shields in the past, and Aleppo and places. And they are hardly neutral observers. And similarly, the World Health Organization was using doctors who are working in terrible circumstances in that region. Again, hardly neutral observers. So the things I've seen it just rings alarm bells. I hope that they have got this very clear evidence, and if they have, our response, I think, was absolutely right. But I am concerned, and I think as we move forward, you know, I wouldn't be in the least surprised if there were another gas attack and someone would say, because it's in their interest to make us respond and get more and more involved.
Exactly. It's in their interests. It's in the terrorists' interests. Anybody with a brain was thinking the same thing. The only people who would benefit from a chemical attack in that region at that time weren't Assad's forces or Vladimir Putin's. The only beneficiaries of a chemical attack in Duma at that time would have been the terrorists, or rather, as our media were calling them for 5 years, moderate rebels. Here's Admiral First Sea Lord West, later, a little bit later, on Aunty Beebe on the TV, saying much the same thing as he did earlier. And this perplexed the lady who was interviewing him so much, she made a bit of a boob. Take a listen.
Are you saying that there may be something faulty with the intelligence, the proof that President Macron has said he has, with the, to quote the Defence Secretary here, Gavin Williamson, the significant body of intelligence which suggests the Assad regime is responsible for what happened in Duma? Are you suggesting there may be faulty intelligence behind all of this?
I think if it's saying it suggests it did it, I'm not sure that's strong enough. If they've got, and I'm not privy to this, if they've got really good intelligence, let's say, for example, GCHQ or NSA intercepts of Syrian officers discussing an attack and saying, yes, let's use chlorine, then OK, fine. And I have no difficulty with what was done, none at all. I think if he has used chemical weapons, it's absolutely right to do a rap across his knuckles to show him that the international community are not willing to put up with this, and it's right to do it. But I just wonder, you know, we've had some bad experiences on intelligence. When I was Chief of Defence Intelligence, I had huge pressure put on me politically to try and say that our bombing campaign in Bosnia was achieving all sorts of things, which it wasn't. I was put under huge pressure. So I know the things that can happen with intelligence, and I would just like to be absolutely sure.
We know that the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Friday, or accused a Western state on Friday of perhaps fabricating evidence in Duma or somehow being involved with what happened in Duma. Given that we're in an information war with Russia on so many fronts, do you think perhaps it's inadvisable to be stating this so publicly, given your position and your profile? Isn't there a danger that you're muddying the waters?
Danger you're muddying the waters. She slipped up there. As Jimmy Dore pointed out in a video at the time, she wasn't meant to say that. That's called saying the quiet part loud. A faux pas. She talked about the elephant in the room, let the cat out of the bag, had a slip of the tongue, made a bit of a boob on the box at the Beebe. She pissed on her chips. Because we are indeed in the middle of an information war, and she wasn't meant to tell you that. It's been going on for quite a while too, unfortunately. This story is just one of the major stories that have been happening over the last 3 years that are actually in that information war and having the truth suppressed. And just like in any war, in the information war, there are two sides. On one side, you have two of the world's superpowers, the establishments of the United Kingdom and the United States of America, armed to the teeth with their global elite public relations companies, otherwise known as the lying mainstream mockingbird media. And on the other side of the information war is their own people. Yes, that's right. On the other side of the information war, on the war on information, you won't find a Russian that the media and the government of the United Kingdom and US are trying to lie to or shield from the truth. You'll find an ordinary American or Brit, like you or me. You see, you and me, we are like mushrooms. We're being kept in the dark and fed on bullshit by the very watchdogs who are supposed to keep us informed and hold the powerful to account. For over a year, governmental PR companies, i.e. the media, on both sides of the Atlantic have been attempting to tell the average person in their countries that Assad, just on the brink of winning the war against the terrorists, quote, moderate rebels, decided to gas his own people, ensuring the wrath of powers that he cannot defend against. And while that narrative alone makes no sense to the average man in the street, trust me, I've asked them, if the average man in the street knew what our supposed watchdogs in the corporate media are not telling him, he might just pick up a torch and a pitchfork. Because as First Sea Lord Admiral West, best name ever, by the way, said in those interviews, the White Helmets and Bellingcat, two of the open sources, remember, that Theresa May used in her assessment for her speech in the House of Commons. That's what they based their evidence on, open sources, White Helmets and Bellingcat, amongst others, are anything but unbiased and neutral. I've documented their dodginess on many, many occasions in videos. So the evidence at the time of this happening was flimsy at best to begin with, that Assad had gassed his own people. Add to that the reporting of Robert Fisk in The Independent and the testimony of 18 witnesses from the Duma hospital scene who told an audience at The Hague that what we saw in the video recorded by the White Helmets was not the after effects of chlorine poisoning, but children suffering from hypoxia, which the situation was used by the White Helmets and seized upon to stage what was needed to blame Assad for doing something it makes no sense for him to do. Then we had the release of a genuine report from the OPCW, which was suppressed, that cast extreme doubt on their findings that the chlorine attack took place at all, let alone dropped from a helicopter, and pointed to those canisters being placed there. Indeed, serious questions surrounded the supposedly neutral and trustworthy OPCW as well, and their report, such as, when does chlorine kill 100% of the people in the area? You know, it usually only kills 1 in 20. And why was there no sign of the victims in Duma trying to escape? Then we had BBC Syria producer Guillaume Delarty's public Twitter announcement and statement that he could prove the Duma incident was used for maximum effect as a propaganda stunt. Strangely, he then made his Twitter account private and so far has given nothing with regards to evidence publicly. Was he silenced by the Beebe or something? Why has he said something so publicly then not followed through with it? If all of this isn't enough to persuade you that our government and media is lying to you about what happened in Duma in 2018, in April 2018, making the official Duma narrative thoroughly debunked now, let's face it, we now have a further whistleblower who has come forward to obliterate any notion that the OPCW can be trusted at all. This whistleblower's name is Alex, and he was on the ground for the OPCW's fact-finding mission in Duma. He was there. And what he says points to the OPCW tampering with evidence to push a pro-Western stance. This is from Counterpunch. The OPCW in Duma. Chemical weapons watchdog accused of evidence tampering by its own inspectors. Just going to go down to this bit here where I've highlighted. Alex, the new whistleblower, said his aim in going public was not to undermine the OPCW, most of whose investigators are objective scientists, but to persuade the organisation's leadership to allow the Duma team to put forward their findings and answer questions at the week-long annual conference of member states, which starts on November the 25th. That's 4 days away. He said this, quote, most of the Duma team felt that the two reports on the incident, the interim report and the final report, were scientifically impoverished, procedurally irregular and possibly fraudulent. He said behind his call for the Duma inspectors to address the next OPCW conference was the hope that hereby the watchdog would, quote, demonstrate transparency, impartiality and independence. He told me, this is from Jonathan Cook, I think is the article. He told me, Ian and I wanted to have this issue investigated and hopefully resolved internally rather than exposing the failings of the organisation in public. So we exhausted every internal avenue possible, including submission of all the evidence of irregular behaviour to the Office of Internal Oversight. The request for an internal investigation was refused and every other attempt to raise our concerns was stonewalled. Our failed efforts to get management to listen went on over a period of nearly 9 months. It was only after we realised the internal route was impossible that we decided to go public. So they have exhausted every avenue, every official avenue here before he's finally decided to blow the whistle. I will link to this article underneath the video after I have finished it. But this whistleblower has basically blown apart the official narrative of what happened in Duma. This whistleblower's testimony was front and centre at a recent conference in Brussels. And his testimony that chlorine levels were not higher than normal levels in Duma, which is impossible if there was a chlorine attack there. It means that there is an almost certainty that no chlorine attack took place in that area. However, none of that is in the report by the OPCW. None of it. Now, I have followed this story from the very start. From the very beginning, it seemed like our government was lying to us. There were videos of me saying our government's lying to us. I've documented it. And for 18 months, our watchdogs in the Mockingbird media have been almost silent on what, when all is said and done, when all the dust is settled on this, will probably go down as the United Kingdom's latest in a long history of war crimes. We violated the sovereignty of a nation. Again, it's not the first time we've done it, when we bombed Syria, because of what appears to be a complete fabrication of events at best, and at worst outright lies. We violated their sovereignty. It's based on lies, on things that didn't happen. That is the supreme war crime. A war of aggression based on lies in retaliation for acts which did not happen is the supreme war crime. And it sure looks at the moment like the United Government and Theresa May are guilty of it. This story may even include state-sanctioned murder, mass murder. Let's remember that. Because the bodies in Duma had to come from somewhere. And if they weren't killed there, where were they killed and were they shipped into Duma? These are questions that we need answering. Now, the Duma incident is just one high-profile story that you are being lied to about in the information war. There are many others. The deluded Russiagate conspiracy, the Mueller report, which ended up being a complete dud, D notices on the Skripal poisonings and his connection to the Christopher Steele, and the D notices on Christopher Steele and Orbis Business Intelligence and Pablo Miller. You know, the DNC hacked Russia, was hacked by Russia lie. And of course, the media's incredible abdication of their duties to the Fourth Estate and as the Fourth Estate in their shameful smearing of Julian Assange and cheering on of his continued incarceration and torture. All of these stories are at the centre of the information war. And you are the one being lied to about them all. Not by Russia, though, by your own government and your own so-called news media. Fight back against it. Support independent media. We really need it. We are not funded as well as these oligarchy-run news organisations that we have. Support independent media. We really need it. Because truth is treason in the empire of lies, and our voices are being suppressed all along the way. Support independent media. Let's make Orwell fiction again. Thanks very much for watching. Please make sure you subscribe. Please make sure you click the bell below so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. Support independent media. Click through to the website to find out ways you can support me. I cannot do this without your support. I really appreciate it. And as you can see, in this day and age, we need unbiased adversarial journalism more than ever in the West. Thanks very much, everyone. Take care. I'll be back about 9 o'clock. I think I'm going to have a live stream later. Take care.